ready.
Welcome back, everybody, to more KeSPA Cup 2018. We're here in the second matchup of the night. It's going to be Gen.G up against DragonX, debuting for the first time here with the new roster here in the KeSPA Cup. I'm Valdez. With me is Papa Smithy. What do you think about this matchup, Papa?
Here's what I think, Valdez. It's more about the tournament as a whole, but GC Busan Rising Star eliminated. Only 7 LCK big guns are left in the tournament. We know that KT Rolster will be playing the winner of this match, DragonX versus Gen.G, in a best of 5 on Friday, 5 p.m. Korean Standard Time, same start time as our first series traditionally has been. This should be a really competitive one. Gen.G were the world champions in 2017, DragonX, a lot of roster changes, but definitely some well-known names. And once we get to showing you guys the bot lane matchup, you will see that 4 of the best bot laners will be taking on each other, and only Life is a rookie. The rest of them are big names in the Korean bot lane scene.
Definitely a fun matchup, I'd say. I think that predictions are kind of going both ways. This could be our most even matchup that we've had so far. Both of us predicting that it would go to 3 games unless something incredible goes wrong. Gen.G in their first time coming out here in the KeSPA Cup looked a sloppy, I'd say. But I think it was definitely a lot of time since then to go back to the drawing board, kind of clean things up before, obviously, a harder opponent in the new DragonX.
Definitely feels like the sort of game that when we see Gen.G kind of go out on the riff, we're going to have kind of things we're looking for. Because at the end of the day, KeSPA Cup is not as much about who is the champion who wins all the marbles. It's, okay, this is where you are at, this is where you want to be, which is world champion. Yeah. Every time we see you, can you show an improvement in performance and just kind of dust over some of the issues that are bound to be there. Most of these rosters, because we're playing the KeSPA Cup after the roster changes, not before like it was previously, are works in progress. There's weeks of scrims, not months of scrims, for basically the entire lineup, short of maybe Dumb1 Gaming and Griffin, who have had the benefit of largely sticking together. So given that, we'll see if Gen.G can level up and just where Kingzone are at, because I think a lot of people look at the roster on paper and say, all right, Rascal and Cuz didn't really play a lot in 2018. We know the other players can be quite good, but Pawn didn't play a lot either in 2018, so they wouldn't really know how to rate DragonX as they currently lie. The word is they're pretty good, but pretty good versus Gen.G might not be enough.
Pretty good, and, you know, where are they going to be at the end of the things here? But guys, before we do get into the match, of course, we will have a bit more days here at the Freak Up Studio until Saturday. Then we'll have 1 day off until we get to the finals here on New Year's Eve, starting at 5. That'll be at Sejong University, at one of the convention halls there. Should be a fun way to close out the year, Papa.
The tickets are being staggered for every round. They will go out overtime to KeSPA EN on Twitter for more information. But let's zoom in on this best of 3. DragonX will be on the left side of the stadium. Tucson Def, the bot lane, a very powerful one. But Rascal and Cuz and Pawn are all to different degrees untested when it comes to the top side of the match. We just went from the most dominant top side we've seen in a long time, KT Rolster, in our first series. We need to see how these 3 will stack up to the big names that KT have when we hit the best of 5.
Yeah, it's definitely a big question here. It looks like the side of Kingzone going over some last-second information and thoughts before we do go into the pick and ban. Rascal, excited to see what he can pull out here. He was always behind Khan. Came in for a bit with a little bit of the controversy with Khan, and then eventually Khan just took his place back. This sign says, I love Tucson. And she is not the only one. I am also deeply in love with Tucson, even though at the end of last year, of 2018, he wasn't looking as good, not as solid. I definitely believe that after some time off, he's going to come back better than ever.
Well, I was in love with the Coco, and then he left Korea, unfortunately, so I didn't get to see Coco play after his time on Longzhu Gaming. Kingzone DragonX, of course, the evolution of Longzhu Gaming. On the other side of the rift, it's the evolution of Samsung Galaxy, and I guess KeSPA also. In Gen.G, lineup is the same as what we saw last time out. This will be their expected starting lineup for the majority of play. Peanut in the jungle against his old team, of course, as he is jungling against his old partner in crime, in Cuz. The bot lane here, Ruler and Life. We say the bot lane, really, it's Ruler, but the bot lane of Gen.G was the reason that they pretty comfortably beat down Sandbox Gaming, and this man on your screen had a very poor first showing, was subbed out for game number 2. That is, of course, KeSPA, former world champion. So he's got a lot to work on. Looked very, very rough on his Aatrox in the Aatrox versus Urgot matchup. So given that, we'll have to wait and see if KeSPA can level up in this game and whether Gen.G can get on Ruler's level, because Ruler's level's looking pretty damn high, Valdez.
Yeah, I think you look at that Gen.G lineup and you're like, I'm not really sure. You know, they lost some strong names in Crown and Ambition, even Haru, the fantastic sub from the jungle that went over the worlds and all that good stuff. But looking at this one, you know, we saw Ruler pop off in a game, a series up against Sandbox Gaming. But once KeSPA gets back into form and Peanut is in this meta, I think he's one of the best junglers, obviously, for an aggressive meta. Loves his Lee Sin, loves his aggressive picks from the jungle. I think they should be a surprisingly strong team for next year.
In 2018, Kingzone were really, really good, especially in spring, and yet, who was the team that always beat them? The Rock was always Gen.G, and the Scissors was always Kingzone DragonX. And Gen.G just beat them down again and again. It goes back further. Remember Samsung Galaxy upsetting Longzhu Gaming at Worlds 2017 with a 3-0 victory in the quarterfinals. How much of this applies when Prey and Gorilla are gone? When Peanut is now on Gen.G? When so much has changed with the Kingzone DragonX lineup, only the subs remaining. The bot lane matchup is a super highlight one we're mentioning here, of course. Peanut against his old organization. Where is Kingzone at is a very fair question, and I'm so excited to find out over the course of what we're hoping is a full 3-game series.
Yeah, I take a look at Gen.G, and we were also asking the question about them. Just about any team that's swapped their roster for new players, where are they at? I feel like they kind of landed a little bit lower than I expected, but it was just a little bit too sloppy up against Sandbox Gaming. The stakes are higher this time around, and I would, you know, think that they are the favorites coming into this one. But again, it's so hard to know when you have a team on the other side that we just have not seen play as 5. But we will have to wait and see.
Kingzone fan sign out there. I saw a Deft Alpaca in the back, so
yeah,
plenty of Deft fans in the audience. We're fully sold out for a long time here. I'm loving these new hoodies from Kingzone DragonX. They're very dapper.
Yeah, really on point. We'll see if their pick and ban is on point, as that's what we're going to jump into right now. Kingzone on blue, Gen.G on red.
And KeSPA, in spite of his last performance, they're deciding to go a little bit further into the history and ban the Aatrox based on, I would assume, Worlds qualifiers Aatrox, not KeSPA's Aatrox. Last time out looked pretty poor. Guys, if you're joining us for the first time in the KeSPA Cup, hello, and thank you for joining us on Boxing Day, the 26th of December. Nico and Xinjiao are globally banned. We're playing on patch 824B, the current live patch, which is cool to see. And already, 2 of these flexible lane assignment champions in Aurelia and Aatrox have been banned by Kingzone. This is not because of Rascal's champion pool, Akali, Aurelia, Ryze, Victor, Lissandra. He's playing the flex champions in the top side. We'll see if one of those is going to be the first pick or just the Lucian that has fallen into the lap of multiple different teams at first pick recently. Cassiopeia and Camille are 100% pick ban this tournament. Are they worried about Cuz's Camille? Because I imagine Peanut and Cuz know about their power levels in the jungle the most of anyone. Remember that top lane Camille is a KeSPA favorite. He looked fantastic on that in a loss against RNG at Worlds. That was probably Gen.G's best overall performance, even though they lost. And Camille actually slipped past the first pick. It's not the Lucian, it's banned away. The first pick's going to be Urgot over everything else.
Well, you've seen the strength of Urgot. He hasn't been changed all too much, and Smeb comes in first game of KT and smashes the enemy team on the Urgot. Just a super strong, solid pick in general, and immediately will be responded to by Akali here. Would be interesting to see if they go for just straight up in-your-face assassins, damage dealers, because starting with Akali Camille, you wouldn't be able to survive too much. Even an Urgot could probably go 1v1 versus both of those.
But my question for Gen.G is, who is your Akali player? Because while top lane mages have always been a very strong part of QV's champion, but it's more the Kennen and the Rise, less the Akali, which is much more about weaving in and out of fight. And yes, QV has played a lot of it in solo queue. 32 games is most played in the new season, but a 31% win rate is not necessarily showing that all the rust is off on that champion. We'll see if it's a QV or a Fly champion. More time to find that out, as Kingzone have locked in what is coming back even after all the nerfs, Ezreal and Tahm Kench as a duo, just to find some safety. However, we already seen that KeSPA and Alistair can probably do very competitively in this lane matchup. Will it be a farm lane or will it be Ruler? Just being able to take up and just continue that mantle, because right now when it comes to AD carry power rankings, you got Ruler and Deft on paper and kind of the rest of the field. Even Viper has something to prove in a non-awesome dude meta. Ruler and Deft are still in Korea and we still rank them right up there.
I'll be curious to see how Deft does with a new support and perhaps a team that can't quite reel him back. Can he keep himself under control and, you know, not face check a little bit too much, or is he going to be kind of the shining light of this Kingzone roster? That's what I'm excited to see in their first game.
If you look at the Kingzone roster, you feel like it's a transplant back to 2014, 2015, because I look at this roster and say, so I guess we're putting all the eggs in the Deft basket. It looks like the lineup where Deft needs to hard carry because there's so many unknowns elsewhere, and you wonder if Deft can return to that point. Because in 2014, 2015, even 2016, between Samsung Blue and EDG, you were so confident that Deft could actually pull it off, that Deft could be the hard carry to end all hard carries. So where he's at right now is something we're going to be able to inspect. As far as we know, Xin Zhao is globally banned, so even though it was being hovered, that's a bit of BM by the side of Ruler, and it's going to be Fly on his Ultra Comfort on the Zoe.
Loves his Zoe. It's a good blind pick. Even if he does have to go up against the Yasuo, wouldn't be fantastic, but can do okay in that lane anyway. Would be more interested to see Pawn playing it, but instead, we're going to go back to Malzahar. Okay.
Against Gen.G, not for Gen.G. Yeah. You can take away the crown, but if Gen.G's in the match, Malzahar is somewhere to be found. First Malzahar so far of the tournament. Yeah. And Kuz goes back to probably his best competitive pick. The Kha'Zix is always a big one for him on Longzhu Gaming, especially when he was that starter, ran the Royal Road on Longzhu Gaming and LCK Summer. We're seeing this matchup. We see it a lot. Peanuts, famous Lee Sin. He's only played Lee Sin this tournament as far as I can remember. He's played 2 games already, and now he's got a 3rd game, and I believe the same matchup because Kha'Zix Lee Sin has kind of been the mascots of the jungle so far in this tournament. You know what that means, Valdez? It means that Camille loses her 100% pick ban status. For the first time, she's not picked or banned, and Cassiopeia is the only 100% pick and ban champion in KeSPA Cup 2018.
Well, Peanut back on the Lee Sin. We saw what King T, can do the first time on KT and their debut here in the KeSPA Cup. What can Peanut do? He's more known for the Lee Sin, and I cannot wait to see if he can pop off and have a bit cleaner of a game. He looked pretty clean, but in general, I just mean Gen.G. Can they play around his aggressive play style and hopefully not get him in too much trouble?
Kuz versus Peanut's going to have a bit of feeling. Even the first time they skirmish or level 1 if they meet, you're going to want to outplay your previous protege or starter depending on which side you're looking at. Pawn doesn't go for Lissandra. I think a lot of people would have grabbed Lissandra in the scenario he found himself in, but he goes for a more Pawn champion. He goes for this Malzahar. Portal Jump can do some pretty troll things to the Malzahar ultimate, so it's not necessarily a matchup that Malzahar excels in, but if the Kha'Zix gets going and you're just scared of a flash Malzahar ultimate at every point, you have to be pretty defensive as the Zoe. QV on the Akali's one will have to see prove himself because, again, doesn't necessarily feel like his ultra-safe wheelhouse that he usually sticks to.
Well, here we go, guys. Game number 1. The studio's packed out to the brim. Let's jump into it. Kingzone up against Gen.G for game number 1.
Cheerleaders? Hello? Hello? It's early. We're rusty.
Guys, what's going on?
No one's cheering.
Yeah.
So we'll cheer instead. Kingzone and Gen.G fighting is what we want to see in game number 1 of this best of 3. And Deft already. Bit of a love tap coming through from Ruler.
5 gold. He's on the board.
It's a nice start for him. Their life and also Fly standing on a ward.
He can't get an item. 10G now onto Deft. He's a little bit low. And on that ward you were talking about, they're coming on over looking for more items. Life in an awkward spot. Not going to be able to collapse, though.
Too late to go for a back timing because we're already around the 55-second mark when Deft found himself 100 HP down. So he's pilfering, he's exploring. He's being the prodigious explorer that Ezreal is at the level 1 here. Level 1 trades for Ruler are not going to be a problem. As you can see, auto Q does 200 damage to most people. That means that right now, a lot of spotting on the bot side. They know that neither side is leashing because they've been face-tanking damage on both sides. Peanut starting red buff. We've seen him do this before. He's done red raptors into bot lane gank. He does a lot of different creative stuff on the Lee Sin, and it's a top side with a leash start for the Kazakhs.
Well, Deft getting frisky at level 1 is what a lot of different Deft fans would like to see. And I just can't wait to see if he can come out here and carry on the Ezreal. We've seen this pick time and time again, just unbelievably strong in terms of damage and carry potential. Unless you get behind early, then it's not so great.
You know what else we see? We see Glacial Augment Malzahar. That's another one mixing up on the Glacial Augment train that Ari and other champions were inspiring. We had it from Lissandra and didn't really impress us. Lissandra kind of has all the hard CC, so the extra soft CC didn't bring much. Malzahar has the silence, but otherwise usually goes to Rylai's just to have a bit more utility. So I imagine we're going to see some GLP or Twin Shadows. It's all about the catch still on the Malzahar. What we've always said about Glacial Augment versus most other choices is, in general, you're giving up damage to go Glacial Augment. Utility for damage is the trade. No surprise then that Deft even further will be the late game insurance, the late game carry damage expected from Deft, because Cuz will be front loaded, and as the game goes from mid to late, we think that Deft, as kind of, it says on the box, with Deft and the players he's with, you kind of knew this had to be a return to Samsung Blue and EDG style Deft, and whether he can still pull that off in 2018 going on 2019, it's not an assurance given that his role on KT was a lot more conservative than his role on previous teams. Can he still do it, or can he no longer do it? It's not something we can say for sure one way or the other, because he wasn't required to be that sort of carry on KT.
Yeah. Did it from time to time, but then there were other moments where you had gigantic question marks above your head, and you were thinking, what the hell is going on? And looks like we're going to have to find out what the hell is going on as we have a pause here, as not really sure what the problem is. I didn't notice anything wrong with the game, but we'll have to wait and see.
Thankfully, production will feed into our headsets when we get a bit of information there. Hopefully, there's going to be a momentary thing. Not really much to talk about there. Again, a lot of fun things, a lot of question marks here, and it's a learning experience. That's what the KeSPA Cup is about. That's my favorite part of this tournament. It's not who will win the tournament. That, of course, will be super hype when we get to the best of fives. But right now, it really is about what can I learn for LCK Spring, which is less than a month away. We're getting an update here. Sounds like Fly is having some issues just with game sounds. I think settings first time on the Rift here at the Freak Up Studio. Just going to try and sort that out.
Yeah, Freak Up Studio for you guys who are not sure where we are and why we're kind of floating in the clouds here.
It's different to yesterday, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're not at the Actos Arena anymore. We're here at the Freak Up Studio, which was formerly the GOM Studio, the new GOM Studio. This studio here, obviously a lot of history, lots of StarCraft 1 and 2 played here mostly. Also a Freak Up for you guys who did not know. They run the Challengers Korea broadcast as well, only in Korean for last year. We'll have to wait and see about next year, but definitely, this place has been around for a very long time, and it's cool to do some high-level, LCK-level League of Legends here in the studio.
I mean, GOM is definitely a name that would mean very little to just League of Legends only esports fans.
Yeah.
I remember hearing about it when I was at university, so I'm aging myself now, but mid-2000s, a lot of people, because they had to subscribe to GOM to actually be able to watch StarCraft back in the day, right? Yeah. That was the big thing there. You had to subscribe. GOM Player was a big player back before everyone just used VLC or something like that, and GOM themselves, have been around esports like OGN for a very, very long time. So GOM out of the picture, Afrika kind of replacing their mantle a little bit there and being able to match up to it. So cool to be here. It's definitely a studio I've heard so much about. So many other English casters have been in here, and feels like very much a privilege to be here.
Papa's first time.
First time, baby.
It's first time for everything. and the first time for these two specific rosters to go head-to-head.
But no debuts happening in this game. We are seeing Rascal and Cuz don't have the most professional games behind them. Rascal, 21 pro games. Cuz has a lot more, 78. He already won an entire tournament, winning the LCK Summer 2017 and going to Worlds with Longstreet Gaming before Peanut ate his lunch a little bit. And then Life, who's played 2 games already on the side of Gen.G last time out. So no pure debuts, and it's been a tournament for debuts. So much new blood and returning blood coming back to Korea for the KeSPA Cup 2018 so far.
Yeah, no debuts here, but Life having his debut in the last game that we did have, up with Ruler, which is also a very cool kind of partner to have in Crime when you're first coming into the scene. Definitely one of the best AD carries we currently have in Korea.
And given that, we should give Gen.G fans who maybe missed that first series the TLDR of our takeaways on the new Gen.G lineup, because it is the same 5. The lineup here in game number 1 against Kingzone. My biggest takeaway was early games seem to be really rough from them. The early game is usually defined by the jungle and support for the vision control and splitting the map, and Gen.G were pretty behind on that. Felt like Life and Peanut being 2 new parts of the team, so had quite a bit of work to do. It definitely scaled into some great team fighting, and Ruler is still that late game win condition, but I was personally focused on how can they control the early game through vision, and can they find a secondary carry for Ruler is always the question. The ideal would be a situation like this, where Peanut plays around vision well and wants to steal away the Infernal Drake. If Peanut can be the early aggressive jungler he was in LCK Spring and bridge the gap with like a carry early game into Ruler being the icing on the cake, I think that's what Gen.G want to evolve into, with Fly as a secondary carry. Whether they get there is going to be a much longer term story, but early game and tightening that up, that is what I'm really looking for from Gen.G.
Well, speaking of tightening up and surviving the early game, the QSS purchased first by Fly. He's not messing around up against Malzahar. We always talk about the Malzahar tax, where you essentially just have to pay a bunch of extra gold not to die. And even if the champion isn't able to use his ultimate on the Zoe, you're still forcing her to spend all this extra gold, and so just makes the champion viable in that one right.
What I really like about that purchase in this game, because it's games where if you go QSS first, the drop in damage actually really hurts your team. In this game, I think that Gen.G would be very confident about scaling up, and if Pawn is behind in items or even in items as the Malzahar and Kha'Zix has no kills, I think Gen.G really want those team fights. They'll feel really confident in that even or better scenario. So given that, go the QSS, don't go the Lost Chapter, go the safety first, and trust in the process if you're Gen.G.
Peanut using that Lee Sin to pick up the Infernal Drake super early here. This is kind of the new meta where all the objectives are so strong right now for their own reasons, where you just want to get them right when they spawn. New Drake now spawns at 5 minutes, so immediately Lee Sin, one of the best at soloing down one of those objectives real fast, will go for that. Kind of unfortunate that Kingzone was backing in the bot lane while also not having any vision on there, so Cuz couldn't go in for a steal. So that does go over to Gen.G.
But what will Cuz do? Because right now it's been pretty inactive, been farming from his side. He's watched the enemy jungler take away a Drake. He's frustrated that he can't just roll up in the mid lane and get a successful gank for Pawn because the QSS does ruin his life a little bit. I guess the way to answer that is to get some blue vision into the red side jungle, specifically of Gen.G, and then try to take down Peanut. He's probably the most ripe target to go and answer in the early game. For now, there's no attention towards him, and we already mentioned even or better for Gen.G sounds like a great recipe for them. Right now, even or better is what we're seeing.
Oh, the ward just barely spots Peanut there. The ping comes in. Wasn't sure if they had seen that, but they do get the ping down, so we know that he does. Kind of an unfortunate back timing here for the Zoe. Malzahar can push pretty fast. Will he pick up the plating? Yes, he will. 160 gold over to Pawn in the mid lane, who, by the way, has 2 Dark Seals here. Kind of an interesting build from the Malzahar.
Whenever it's more than one, it goes from a Dark Seal build to a Dank Seal build over here in Korea. Just a bit more early power, right? More flat mana to spam the spells and push the lanes. All about pushing for moments like this. With that push, you get to contest objectives. They get the blue, which is definitely a micro objective compared to what they want, which is a Rift Herald or Infernal Drake. The Drake spawns about 50 seconds or so after the Rift Herald spawns, and we'll see if we continue with Gen.G feeling like they can pick up Drakes and the Rift Herald goes the way of Kingzone, or if things change, because it's an Ezreal. And what we know about that is the 2-item build is cheap. And if you can turn a 2-item build into just fighting half an item, 1 item before Gen.G are ready, that's really good news for Kingzone to push forward in this game.
I'm glad that now here in the KeSPA Cup we kind of have some games under our belt, and some of these rosters we can talk about. For KeSPA, didn't have the best showing the first time out. He actually got subbed it out, and Ro8 came in for the second game. They ended up winning 2-0, but KeSPA not the best performance. But this time around, having a pretty nice top lane up against the Urgot so far, up about 12 CS so far.
Laning phase has been good, and now he's coming mid.
Can he land a trouble bubble? Yes, he can. The flash away here, though, but still, KeSPA will go in. The silence gonna go wide, and the flash is down. Gonna desperately use his ultimate, but first blood goes over to KeSPA on the Akali.
Really like the way that KeSPA played it as well. Ensured there was never going to be the Bonanza ultimate go force a 1-for-1. It's going to always be an out trade and a great roam timing. They don't even lose a lot of meaningful CS. It's a 2-wave lead and a kill. KeSPA, we questioned the Akali pick for him, whether it would be comfort. Didn't look like it in solo queue, but in the competitive game, the roam timing already, talking about KeSPA roam, something he's done very sparingly in 2018, is a start. And the moment the trouble bubble hit, Pawn probably knew that this was going to be first blood, Gen.G.
Yeah, good try on the silence, but the Akali just way too mobile, able to dash around in there. Wouldn't have really stopped his death, I don't think, but a good shot anyway when it's 1 versus 3.
Still, Cuz is going to continue to push forward, and the Rift Herald, as we kind of mentioned, is going to be his attempt at a claim. Now, what health will it be at when Life takes it down? We already mentioned him joining us late in the KeSPA Cup. Contesting for this Drake early is very much the meta. Kingzone sending in more members. They know they can't solo it down with Life so close to it. Here we go.
Oh, they're trying to force it in here. The smite is there easily, though, over to Cuz. Good response here from Kingzone, immediately able to pick up that very valuable objective.
And teams have definitely been behind the 8-ball on the Rift Tower because we're not seeing battles for vision around it a minute before. And that's always the way with the Drake, right? We'll always say, okay, a minute to Drake spawns, who's in position to control the pit? Because if you're there at the time it spawns, that's too late. You need to be there for the vision battle, and then you just pick it up by proxy when it finally spawns. The same is true of Rift Herald, and the fact that it's contested from 10 to 12 minutes so frequently means that teams need to really think about that, dot their I's and cross their T's, and ensure that they can actually be there to either take it or not allow it to be taken by the enemy.
Speaking of vision, Gen.G able to use that Scryer's Bloom to also clear out a bunch of vision here towards the second Drake of the game. This one will be a Mountain Drake, and Peanut once again going to get started on that. We have 3 control wards around the area. Tucson is going to spot it here, but can the steal come in is the big question. 5 members, or 4 members rather, getting on in there. It's going to go over to the Lee Sin. And it looks like they're going to be called off here as Gen.G not going to try for the fight. Deft picking up some extra gold on the way out, but still another trade goes to Gen.G.
Speaking of trades, KeSPA definitely avoiding damage by going back into the Shroud. Very, very nicely played here. Loving this lane control. If we could just get a year of aggressive KeSPA, then that would be an excellent 2019. Rift Herald's going to be put down early to try to get the gold. It's going to go on Deft because this is Kingzone DragonX, and Tucson dodges away to remove any ambiguity about which side of the bread it's buttered on in the bot lane. It's Deft's side.
Yeah. There's only one side here. You don't butter it twice. Just Deft. We'll see what he can do. And he's already doing pretty well. Has the most farm in the game.
And here's Kingzone's comms. It's, let's take the bot lane turret, show up with 2-item Ezreal, and getting the 2 items very, very early is an Ezreal Norm. And then we have Malzahar, Kha'Zix, even an Urgot to poke in. We could do a pretty fast Baron at 2 items. So mid lane Ezreal Tahm Kench is what you want, because then Ezreal is annoying with his poke, and then Tahm Kench can help with the roam options from there. And Baron early would be exactly what Kingzone want. It feels like if the Baron doesn't go their way, we've already talked about the scaling. We're liking the scaling from Gen.G, but getting Deft into the mid lane as early as possible is what this draft needs to win.
Life looking to set up. Not much of a play, just trying to push them back as Deft and Tucson doing a good job pushing that one in. But take a look at KeSPA up on the top side, that aggression, that delicious gold that Papa so wants is going over to the Akali. That's going to be one fed Akali.
Feels like bot versus top right now, doesn't it, when we're looking at where this game is going. Talked about getting that bot lane turret and pushing forward. There's the 4th turret plate eliminated. Deft is going to have just the fattest stacks in his wallet when he goes for this eventual recall. And how about a second blue buff contest off spawn by Kingzone?
This time should be able to easily take it, as Peanut is actually stealing the enemy blue at the same time. And Cuz actually picked up that blue. They didn't give that one over to the Malzahar. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Fly will be able to steal the blue. So Fly with blue against Pawn without blue.
And now, if we see Ezreal Tahm Kench in mid lane, he might go top first to end the Akali laning phase or double down on mid. If you go mid, you feel so good because the enemy doesn't even have a lost chapter. They went QSS for lane. What's QSS going to do against Ezreal Tahm Kench? Almost zero, right? He won't have the battle stats to keep wave going on command. For now, at least, they're looking at the top side here and they're saying, all right, QV is getting scary. Let's make you scary a little bit later, as it's 2-item Ezreal in QV's lane.
Going to be able to take control of that. This kind of vision and aggression in this area would have been nice with the Rift Herald still available. They're just taking control of here, trying to find picks in the jungle, but Cuz is going to be just fine. Bit of a gank brush here. We've seen those not really work out in the past in KeSPA Cup.
How far are you walking up, Tucson? That's too far!
Okay, well, Tucson rather going to be burst down here, and so will go down Cuz as they go for the face check. Perfectly timed trouble bubble, but they're not going to go for the Urgot, who's just a little bit too tanky. Make that a second kill, but okay, Life, maybe a little bit of a rookie mistake there, gets in trouble, but he will live with the flash over the wall.
The rookie lineup ends up being Kingzone at the pro level. It is too brazen to face check that brush when you have almost no information as to where the enemy is. At best case scenario, one person finds 4, and that doesn't go well for the one ever. They get taken down. They can't even get anything out of Deft's items here. Remember, all the gold in the early game is on Deft, and all he can do is E, W, and Q a damn altered Alistar. They get no value out of Deft because 2 people decide to hand over their lives in tribute. Big mistake, or rookie mistake, comes through from Kingzone.
The heal there from Fly saves Life's life, as he will make it out just on the backside. But yeah, I mean, as long as engagements go that way for Gen.G, the Ezreal, doesn't matter who's fed really, is not going to be having too much fun. Whereas Ezreal might struggle to get all the way into the backline. We'll see what Ruler can as he gets more fed on this KeSPA.
Yeah, I spy with My Little Eyes, double buffs, and 100 AD odd on the side of Ruler, and that is the start of bad news for the side of Kingzone DragonX. Again, we had this meta for all of 2018, right? 2-item Ezreal in the mid lane with Tahm Kench. What will he do? Well, it's 2-item Ezreal, and it's the part of the game where Ezreal's better than every other champion. He's the strongest champion at 2 items in the game, I would argue. Especially cheap items this early into the game. But if he just kind of farms or goes CS for CS with Akali or the Zoe or wherever the lane assignment is, then someone's going to show up stronger later. And that's kind of the issue we see right now, is that Gen.G trying to make that timer for where Kingzone out-trade earlier and earlier, and Kingzone also helping them out with the face check and giving over 2 kills.
I like how Gen.G continuing that pressure at the top side. They really want to take out a couple of those turrets, mainly the top one if possible, but so far, I mean, as long as they keep this kind of vision control in the area, they would love to keep it until Baron time, which is only about 5 minutes away.
See the GOP done for Pawn. He has gone for that item. You can go Glacial Augment and skip one of the GOP or the Twin Shadows, but GOP a nice fit into Malzahar, gives him a bit more burst reach as well, so that's why we do see it opted into. We'll see where it goes with the build from here, because Muranomicon will be pretty standard, and you don't necessarily have to go fully into exploiting the Glacial Augment.
Both the junglers hanging around the mid lane. Peanut level 11, Cuz level 10. Not the greatest time to take a 2v2. Both these lanes will just kind of back off, but Peanut once again looking for his 3rd Drake here. Not too much vision control, I'd say, by the side of Kingzone. Very defensive control wards in the top side. And that's about it. Nothing around the Drake side, so it looks like Peanut should be able to take another easy objective. Gonna get a Cloud Drake this time to his team.
But when you split bot for top, which has been the story for this entire game, Rift Herald going the way of Kingzone and bot side being the 3 Drakes taken at 18 minutes, you remember that from 10 to 20 minutes, it's Rift Herald and no other objective top side. And because Ruler was able to pick up a kill and an assist involvement. He has 100 AD and he's able to trim the wave against the Ezreal and stop the secondary turret from going down. These sort of lane swaps work really well if Ezreal could just take down top outer turret in an easy fashion, but the extra items onto Ruler has meant this is a much slower turret take and maybe not even a guaranteed turret take for the side of KingZone.
Okay, making a play here in the mid lane as Malzahar Pawn just went back home, is not willing to TP onto the turret either, so essentially just going to be given over to the side of Gen.G as both fly. Okay, nice engage here as well. It is the Tom Kench. So not much is going to happen. The ultimate will sail wide, but will catch the minions at least.
Still, what did we say? Exhaust KingZone, slow down KingZone. That's what we asked from the side of Gen.G, and the 2v2 is doing that at the top side. They've got the mid lane turret. They actually have even turrets here in this game, and we already talked about that advantage in the Drakes, so things are fine from the side of Gen.G. Again, that doesn't mean KingZone lose. They could get their own sort of catch with the catch as you catch can on the Malzahar especially. But if Malzahar is in the mid lane like he is, not a lot of threat onto Zoe with the QSS first item.
By the way, KeSPA 2-0, Gunblade and QSS, and half of Azonia's completed here at 20 minutes. This guy is about to pop off. Once he gets that Azonia's completed, I mean, this guy is going to be nearly unstoppable. We'll have to wait and see if Deft on the Ezreal can weave in and out of an Akali in his backline. I know he's got mobility, but Akali can be hard to get away from sometimes.
Now, that does mean that the better part of 4,000 gold has been spent on QSSs already in the early game. We see it on Cuvée, Peanut, and Fly. We talked about how it is a utility build going for the Glacial Augment here, but it does mean the other side of the coin, again, we talked about this a lot in 2018, is that means that with a 300, 400 gold lead for Gen.G, not all of it has been spent optimally. You're not min-maxing your damage, you're going for QSS. Where that trade-off lies, given that it's Glacial Augment on Pawn and the fact that Pawn hasn't got a good start, means that maybe it's a big deal. Maybe the damage will mean a lot for the side of KingZone being able to mainline their items more, and maybe they won't, especially because we see 2 items onto Ruler.
Wow, the flash forward here from Tucson. He wants blood as Peanut is going to be forced to QSS to slow just to make sure that he is not going to get in trouble. We had Cuvée coming from behind, and I thought maybe Gen.G would want to start on that fight, but no can do as Gen.G do back away.
And all that means is maybe a slight window for Pawn to return to killing Peanut, but realistically, probably not. Realistically, it's probably going to be waited for. Gen.G even able to take down a turret lead against this Ezreal comp, especially with how strong Deft was early, is not good news for KingZone fans.
Cuvée continuing his pressure in the bottom side. It looked like the Urgot Rascal just stepping out there for a little bit too long as the Akali was doing quite well down there, but now the bottom lane of Gen.G a little bit late to the top side. They'll have their own turret taken away. Ultimate is used here though, and the Life and Peanut want to come in. Double TP though to the top side by the blue team. Cuvée trying to get on top of Cuz. Nearly is able to take him out. There's the combo on the backside, the kick too. They want the Deft in the backline. The stun comes in, but they can't get him. Tucson is going to go down, but the Fear Beyond Death is going to catch 2 in the top side. And Rascal doing such a huge job in that front line for KingZone, keeping the hopes alive for them. Nearly wins them the fight on the backside. Cuvée now looking for an opportunity. Ruler forward, and there he is! Ruler, 1v3, is gonna get 2 on the backside. Unbelievable play by Ruler to carry a Gen.G.
Ruler and Cuvée on the same lineup still show a lot of veteran status there. They're chasing onto Pawn as well. Ooh. Gonna be hard to finish off this. Go need one more so. There it is. There's the Gunblade.
Yeah, they got the Gunblade. Do they have the follow-up though? Good silence out of Pawn just on the backside. Another flash picked up, but another missed Paddle Star by Fly. Not able to execute on the backside.
And it's moments like that when you see the old synergy between players who've been together for 3 odd years. Watch this very extended fight. Now, Pawn finishes recall. He's like, crap, I need to teleport right now. Otherwise, all the members of my team will die. They try to focus down here, and Ruler does get the first kill, but the turnaround is pretty good for the side of KingZone. They're able to turn onto one member. Fear Beyond Death gets a 2-man fear, and you think, actually, it's the turnaround. Actually, KingZone will be able to do it, but watch Ruler, who goes out of vision range here and then hides in the brush. Hide on bush, pretty good in solo rank, pretty good in the game. Gets the W, snipes Steph. He doesn't have ult here. He does it all himself. Classic Ruler, classic Gen.G.
Well, he was 2-0. Now he's 4-0. 4-0-1 is Ruler on a late game carry on the KeSPA. Has a QSS with some of that extra gold he was able to pick up from the fights. And not looking so hot if you're going up against a Fed Akali and a Fed KeSPA. We'll see what they can do though here, because struggling to find his purpose in the game so far. The Kazakhs not really able to do that burst damage to get them ahead and get deft on the front foot in some of these fights.
He was clearly outpathed by Peanut this game. Peanut got so many neutrals where it was just farming from Kaz, not even getting flashes in lanes. He was just purely falling back and farming, so that inaction has been costly. Chasing on to Fly here. Remember the other interaction with QSS. We know about the Malzahar, but remember it does work against Urgot's ult as well.
Nice snipe there with the Q. Kind of awkward positioning from Gen.G, but they will get a second Infernal, and Rascal taking damage on the backside. Now Tucson loaded. There's the burst damage. There's the Akali and the KeSPA getting in to the front line, just chopping away, chopping the head off of Kingzone, forcing them back after picking up their second Infernal of the game.
Ruler's already so damn strong, even though it's 2 items. That core has always been there for the KeSPA. Ruler walks up, and we talked about how Gen.G labored in the early game, and then Ruler did the rest. Gen.G played a good early game, and Ruler says, thank you very much, I'm still great. Comes in, does more damage than Tom Kench could ever have predicted. They can't chase for further kills, because the actual chase really does need a flank of some sort on the side of Gen.G, and remember, it was a very weird skirmish in the top lane that led to the first big battle of this game. We back away from all of that. Here comes bot lane. He's going to take down a turret. The gold lead is only 1,300, but we like the scaling on the side of Gen.G, and Kingzone's a bit of panic stations already.
Still struggling to have a good fight where they can actually break into the backline and take down the squishy, meaty part of Gen.G that is the Zoe and the KeSPA. It's more so Ruler now that he's so fed. He's the one going into the backline by himself, essentially, with some help of his friends, KeSPA and Fly here. Peanut thinking about it, just teasing Pawn on the backside. Gonna poke him a bit.
Oh, his ally is too far away to actually take the Q there. That would have been some Lee Syndrome moments coming through from Peanut, so just poking like you mentioned against Pawn. Cousin Tucson, you see how shallow the vision needs to be put by Kingzone, and that means that Malzahar is not going to be in many brushes setting up for a gank rush. Speaking of gank rushes, we're actually seeing the Baron just started here by Gen.G.
Yeah, they do have the vision, and Zoe so good at controlling these walls. KeSPA slowed down for a bit. They're just playing Keeper, but here comes Deft into the front line, but Baron will go to Gen.G. Now they have to back off of this one unless they can get it going in their favor. Deft trying to poke a little bit. Fly getting frisky, nearly takes out Deft with just one battle star and the Proto Belt, but it's not going to be enough, and that's going to be a very clean Baron take there from Gen.G.
I'm just so impressed with how much Gen.G has improved where they needed to. Papa Smithy, being his best headmaster impression, said, let's work on the early game. It was way better from Gen.G. They were able to outpath the enemy pretty consistently, and now we're at the point where Peanut does a very un-Peanut thing and says, I'm building a Knight's Vow. This KeSPA is going to do the rest.
Well, now he's, playing with Ruler down there.
You're playing with house money. We know that Ruler is a blue chip investment in the late game.
Pretty much. That's a 90%er right there. We'll see if it works out for them, though. It looks very good for Gen.G right now. They're looking to pick up as much gold as possible off the back of that Baron take. We'll see how they can do. Obviously, the Zoe is going to be fantastic at sieging. The rest of the team, not the best, but they do have a decent amount of dive with the Akali and the Alistar, of course. So
you very rarely see Akali more than an item ahead of an Urgot, but that's where we're at here. Akali has all sorts of tasty choices when it comes to options to go aggressive or defensive. Level lead onto Rascal as well. The solo kill will take a lot of time. It's not going to be there as Deft already. I like the buffering there. Actually gets the ultimate off because of how the Sleepy Trouble bubble works.
I just love how the bubble is a third of his health, too. Classic Zoe versus Ezreal.
Couple of those Fire Drakes help out as well, though, Des.
Fire's, pretty good. He's going to hit this time the Malzahar, but Tucson is there to help him out. Zoe doing her thing. You're so far ahead. You have Baron buff. You are a Zoe. This is what's going to happen. The rest of the team just threatening, daring Kingzone to even come close to them when they have so many blue chip stocks right behind them. Ruler is unbelievably fed right now. Deft is trying his best, to get some combinations on a Ruler, but even that doesn't seem to do much damage as the second inhibitor is being chipped away at here. Taking their time is Gen.G. We don't want to, do anything too rash, and the cannon minions will take it out on the backside. That's 2 inhibitors now going to Gen.G.
And we have to remember back and say this was no Space Jam game from Gen.G. This wasn't them dictating the pace at all times. There was something for Kingzone to show. The Rift Herald into depth, picking up the fat stacks and having 14 minutes, 2.5 items or so, but 2 items and boots were done. Actually putting that to good use, actually leveraging that into a lead never happened. I know I was calling for Ezreal to go in the mid lane and shut down the Zoe and potentially find a way to set up for a 20-minute Baron. Instead, they went topside and traded farm with Ruler, who already had 100 AD, already could trim waves, and then just nothing happened from there. The QSSs came through, and Malzahar was slowed down. So the draft, returning to that, the Malzahar and Kha'Zix duo didn't work, definitely in the not good column. And then the decision around the lane swap also hurt them.
Okay, the steal was pretty close, but that's going to be triple Mountain Drake. And here comes Ruler, just straight in the front line. 4-man knock up there by Life. He's coming in big. Double kill now for Ruler. And the rest of Kingzone tails between their legs. Nowhere for them to go. Now it's KeSPA's turn to try to get in there. Oh, look at the burst damage out of the Zoe. Nearly one-shots Deft, and he's got to heal too. Trying to catch some members on the backside. Can he do it? Looks like the answer will be no. But either way, Gen.G looking to close this game out in about 30 minutes.
Gen.G will be deserved victors of game number 1. It went to plan for them, but did not do so for Kingzone on their debut in the KeSPA Cup. Seeing how much time they can buy here, Kingzone, before these Nexus turrets go down.
Well, the push will commence. Pawn and Deft trying their best. There's the flash forward, but the exhaust is there. They'll pick up 1 kill on the backside. Maybe a second as KeSPA gets low, but either way, game 1 will go over to the side of Gen.G relatively cleanly once we did hit the mid-game.
And we talked about Teddy's undying streak. I think that we're going to have another one to talk about as Ruler popped off again. This guy is as blue chip as there is in the LCK. In Faker we trust for so many years. There was no one else you could put on that pedestal. Now BDD is near it. Now Ruler is near it. When it comes to blue chips, Gen.G know which one to focus on, and the moment that you see Peanut, right after we saw Umti dominate on Lee Sin and go lethality, instead, we see Peanut have a solid Lee Sin game. He doesn't need any lethality. He needs a Knight's Vow to make sure that Ruler can go as aggressive as he wants on the Kai'Sa.
Yeah, it's rough. The jungler difference, I would have to say, heavily in favor of Peanut when you can't really get anything going in the mid lane with the QSS first for Zoe. Neither the Malzahar nor the Kha'Zix can do much. I mean, Def was okay on the Ezreal. He got a lot of gold down on the bottom side, but everything around him was just falling apart, and they couldn't really come together as a team to overpower them early and mid.
If we've learned anything from solo queue, it's not the size of your lead, it's how you use it. And at the side of Gen.G, they knew exactly what to do. It was pretty surgical by the end. Really great game 1 showing from them.
Yeah, some fantastic stuff. Cleaned up a lot from their first matchup against Sandbox Gaming. Peanut and KeSPA looking like they're finally on board. Get another, maybe 4 days, I suppose, since the last time they played, of scrims under their belt, and they're looking a lot cleaner as a team.
Give another 4 days, and they could be playing in that final of the KeSPA Cup.
Could certainly happen, but guys, we're going to hit a quick commercial break before we head into game number 2. Be right back.